Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 40th episode of the Matias Sports Podcast. I have WBZ Sports reporter Dan Roche. How are you, sir?
Good, Ken. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. So, like I just told you, if you just want to speak about your career, obviously your career, you've been at BZ for what, 25 something years, 30 years. So, if you want to talk about that and your beginnings, go for it.
I think I'm like every kid that grows up in New England. My path started in seventh grade. I decided for some reason in my mind that I wanted to be a sports journalist, broadcaster, what have you, but also try to play college baseball. So I was able to do both. I was born and raised in North Andover, Mass. Went to North Andover High School, and I was about to go to Syracuse University to start my broadcasting and journalism major. And I had the game of my life as a second baseman on a high school baseball team in our one of our sectional games, and at the old Frazier Field in Lynn. And went 5 for 5 or something along those lines. Turned a couple double plays at second base, and a coach from a small school in Maine, which has now gone bankrupt, by the name of Nassau College, walked up to me afterwards and said, "Are you playing anywhere?" And I said, "No." I said, "I'm going to Syracuse for broadcasting." And he said, "Well, if you want to play college baseball, we have a spot open for you, and I need a second baseman. You'd start right away." So I talked it over with my dad and ended up going to that school in Maine. Had the time of my life, had a great time for 1 year. School went bankrupt that 1 year that I was there. They announced that we were going bankrupt sometime in October. And it was kind of like a gap year for me. So it was really, really cool. Met a bunch of really good guys on a baseball team that I still connect with every now and then. And went to Florida. We raised our own money and had a fun season. And then I transferred and went for 4 years to Syracuse. So all worked out in the end. And while I was at Syracuse, I met a lot of good people, including the great Sean McDonough. And
Oh,
he
yep,
kind of
yep.
took me under his wing. And I said, "What do I do?" And he said, "Well, go home, look for an internship, look for anything you can do." I started working for a couple of Kurt Gowdy radio stations in Lawrence, and came out of Syracuse, had a full time job, and then slowly worked my way into the Boston market. And here I am today. So
Oh,
all
that's
good.
that's awesome. So, you guys went to school together, you and Sean, or it was just,
Yeah, he was a senior when I was a freshman. So I was there for 1 year with him, and he kind of ran the meeting. There was a student radio station meeting, which is the famous radio station in Syracuse. And I walked up to him afterwards, introduced myself, told him where I was from, and he said, "All right, do this, 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 this." And Sean and I have been friends ever since for a long time. And one of the cool things about Syracuse is there's a lot of good people around us at all times, and I just fortunately was able to be around a lot of good people that I still stay in touch with a lot of times. One went on to be the voice of Virginia Tech for 30 years. Another one's still working in West Virginia. He's the voice of West Virginia football, basketball, and everything else. Another one is the voice of the San Francisco 49ers, who used to be with
wow.
the Raiders for a long time. And then Mike Tirico was a year below me. So I've known Mike forever as well. So a lot of just really like-minded, good people that work hard, and we've had a strong connection ever since. So it's one of the benefits of going to a great school for a major like that. So it was really, really cool.
Yeah, even from like back then to nowadays, like you got Drew Carter, the voice of the Celtics with,
Yep.
Skell. He came out of there. Did Noah Eagle go there? Because I had him on my
Yep.
podcast too.
Noah,
So,
Noah and his dad, Ian, both went there. And the nice thing is, it really started during the pandemic. Is we basically started a bunch of group texts, and we have them all over the place. So if there's a big game or something like that, and Ian's calling the game for CBS, we'll text him, say good luck, have a great call, or if
wow.
Tarico's on and stuff like that. So it's just a nice connection to have with everybody. And they're just, like I said, they're all like-minded people, good people. We have a good time doing what we do. And I'm just a little small tiny fish in that big pond of the great Syracuse broadcasters. So I just it's funny too, because everybody that I was with at Syracuse always used to say the same things to me. You just want to go home and you just want to be a Boston guy. That's all you want to be. That's all you want. It's all you talk about is the Boston market. It's all you talk about are the Boston sports teams. So I never really had any national inspirations. It was
Hmm.
always I wanted to stay local, and I've been able to stay local and keep fooling them for all these years. So it's been kind of fun.
That's amazing. Just growing up, obviously in North Andover, being, a Mass native and going to Syracuse, and now you've been at BZ for what, 25 years?
Yeah, 20. This is my 25th year in TV, and I was there
Wow.
6 years prior to that in radio. So it's been a heck of a run, and I just keep fooling them. So I just wake up every day hoping that I can continue to do my job and have some fun. So it's and knock on wood, it's been fun so far, and hopefully it continues.
Yeah, talk about your tenure because right before the pandemic, my wife and I, we were actually before we started dating, Steve Burton, I connected with him and he took her and I to the studio. You know, he introduced himself. I think I met him at Gillette when he was doing one of the games at what is it, the Harp now. He used to be CBS scene.
Yep.
He's like, "Hey, come down to the studio." I'm like, "Hey, I love sports broadcasting. I love this." My wife and I were like friends at the time just before we started dating. And so we went there, like I think it was December of 2019. He had us watch the newscast, you know, took us around, yada yada yada. And you know, I love the studio. It's in Alston, if
Yeah,
I'm
it's
saying that
kind of
right.
it's right behind Harvard Stadium. That's the way that I tell people. So it's
Yeah.
I think it's technically in Brighton, but it's right behind
Hmm.
the old Harvard Stadium, which is really cool. So it's a
But
convenient location, good place to be.
yeah, yeah. So I ended up loving the studio. So just talk about your tenure being at the studio. Have you been there the whole time, or did they move around in your 25 years?
Yeah, no, our building has stayed the same. That's
Wow.
been one of the nice things too. Is it's right there. It's easy to find, easy to get to, easy to
Hmm.
go to the Garden, easy to go to Fenway. A little bit of a distance to Foxborough, but I think everything is pretty much when you're trying to go to Foxborough. But yeah, it's been like a second home to me. I've spent many and many weekends there. Basically, been doing weekends since I started there. But it's good. It's it's a tough business where we've lost like a lot of people along the way. It's just kind of gone in that direction. But there's just good people that I work with every day, from the anchors that you see on TV, from
Hmm.
David Wade and Lisa Hughes and Paula Evan, all the way through to Steve and the job that he's on. We're like brothers, have been like that for forever. We've known each other seems like forever, and all you do is talk about our families and our kids.
Hmm.
And then we have good behind the scenes producers. They're my favorite people. Jackie Canale, Joe Giza, those kind of people that don't really get any credit in front of the camera, but they're the ones that make everything go, especially in our sports department. So it's just good people through and through. And most of the people I find that you see on WBZ TV are just like they are off camera as they are on camera.
Hmm.
And the best advice I ever got starting years and years ago in this business was two words: be yourself. And I think that kind of is a reflection of everybody at the TV station. So it makes it a lot more fun to come to work. It makes it a lot more fun to relax, have a good time. And we have, good bosses. Bosses are like managers, and general managers are like general managers in sports. They're
Yeah.
there for usually like 5, 6 years, and then they kind
Hmm.
of move on. And that's kind of the way the business goes. But there's been a lot of good ones along the way. I have a good one now in Gerardo Lopez. And Johnny Green is based in New York. He's our general manager, was based in Boston for a long time. So we've got a lot of really, really good people that we're working with and have a lot of fun with too.
Is there a lot of local, like the anchors and the people that were there? Like, is there a lot of local people or just people just moving all over the place? Because you and Steve are local. Obviously, you guys grew up here and stuff like that. But how's that industry kind of work? I know sometimes being all over the place, like I interned at Channel 5, you probably got people moving all over the place.
Yeah, it's a mix, and that's
Yeah.
kind of one of the cool things about our business, and any business in life, right? It depends on what you
Hmm.
want out of it. But in TV, it seems like a lot of people have moved around. Started in the some of the lower markets as far as population is concerned. Started doing their thing, in market 145 out in Idaho or
Yep.
Montana, and then worked their way all around the country, and then eventually end up at a station like WBZ. And then there's others that are born and raised, like myself and Steve, that have just kind of like fallen into that path of where we want to be. So I found that over the years, it's a mix. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to watch some of the younger people come in now, and they're from parts unknown from around the country, and
Yeah.
they're like, "Hey, how do you pronounce? Is it Worcester? Is it
Yeah.
Leominster? Right? Is it Haverhill?" And
Yeah.
it's just kind of like you shake your head and say, "Yeah, no,
That
no,
cracks
it's
me up.
yeah." Everything I do till this day, my scripts and everything else, I still write out everything phonetically, and I tell them to
Hmm.
do that when it's just write Wister, right? And they're like, "What's that?" I'm like, "It's Worcester." Right? That's like it doesn't look like it's spells, but it's just the best way to pronounce it. So it's pretty funny to watch them come in from out of town, but they're just like I said, good people just trying to do a good job too. We have a kid now that just started. Logan Hall is his name, and he's coming from California, so it's
Wow.
just it's been fun to kind of watch him acclimate himself and get into what we're doing here. So he's a good kid, and I like the people like that, and I like the people that I work with. They're just a lot of good people, and even people behind the scenes in our website now, and everything
Hmm.
social media. A kid like Matty Geegan, who started as an intern for us and kind of rose through the ranks, TV producer, and now he's the full time sports producer of all of our website stuff that's out on social media and everything else. So just friends for life. That's kind of how I look at it. That you make with a lot of these people.
No, that's great. And if I mean, I'm not trying to make everything about Steve, but seeing that I've met him and my
Well,
wife met
Steve
him and
does.
stuff.
You know what I mean? So I'm used to it. It's fine. He goes
But
to Miami. He goes to Europe. I go to Buffalo.
no,
I get it.
I
I
see you guys
understand.
on the fifth quarter. I see you guys on the pregame. I'm like, you guys are great. Fourier. I had the chance to have Fourier come on my podcast too, and he seems like a pretty nice guy too. But just talk about your connection with Steve, and obviously he started in what, like the '90s, early to mid '90s at WBZ there.
Yeah, Steve. I think Steve started maybe. I started 2000 was my first year full
Hmm.
time in TV, and I think Steve might have started like 2 or 3, 4 years before that.
Hmm.
So, like I said, we've gone everywhere together. We prefer to work together. Prefer to work together on the air. We have a lot of fun. We have a lot of camaraderie, and we kind of complement each other well. Steve does his thing, I do my thing, and we kind of meet in the middle when it comes to how we put stuff on the air. So I'm kind of a nuts and bolts kind of guy. Like I just kind of like the grind of
Hmm.
being with a team. And Steve is more of like your day to day, just being out in front of the camera and kind of telling the story for us. And then we sit there and talk about it and break it down analytically and everything else that we do as a team. So it's fun. It's like I taught my kids, their whole life that there's nothing better than being a part of a team. And that's kind of how I look at it with what we do, especially with Steve. And him and I have been together for so long that we know each other so well, and we know what we're doing, how we do it, what we want to do. That it just makes it a lot easier to work every day because there's no, big time questions. There's no second guessing and everything else. It's like, Steve, you
Yeah.
do this, I'll do that. We'll see you, and we'll be back. So that's kind of one of the cool things. And Steve's just, he's a good dad. He does a lot of work for the Ron Burton Training Village, which
Yep.
his dad established. And he certainly has helped thousands of kids get to good places in the world. So him and his family are tremendous. His athletic family, the girls playing basketball.
Yep.
Austin was a quarterback, and they're just still going strong. So it's been a lot of fun.
I know I've seen his kids, like obviously Kayla Burton's on NBC Sports Boston now. She does stuff for NBC. She does a phenomenal job. Veronica played for the Sun briefly. She's a good athlete as well. And what's Austin up to nowadays, if you don't mind me
I think
asking?
Austin just entered the working world. You know what
He
I mean?
did.
He kind of had a journey as a quarterback,
Hmm.
and it was always interesting to watch him try to land somewhere as a quarterback. And it's a glamorous position. We all know that, but
Yeah,
man,
it's
just
tough.
just just watching the way he had to go about his business, and he did it, with yeah, as you'd expect, with class and dignity, and just kind of waiting his time and everything like that. And it's funny, all these coaches, and you can't really blame them that you see out there. They'll sit there and say, "Hey, Ken, you come to UCLA, you're going to be my starting quarterback." But he also has to say that to 5 other quarterbacks for that class because
Yeah,
you
because
have
that's
to
where
have
he started, right?
yeah, and you have to
Yeah.
have a quarterback to be successful. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, Austin bided his time. He had some people ahead of him. He got a couple of starts, just couldn't get over the hump. There, and things happen. They bring in a freshman another coach that leaves, a new coach comes in. He brings in his guys. And but the coolest thing I think is that he got his degree. I think he might have gotten 2 degrees,
Oh wow.
and by the time he was done, went to UCLA and Purdue, and
Hmm.
had the time of his life. Had some great experiences that'll take with him. And I was always like, dang, how come you don't get to play more, Austin? Every time you play, you
Yeah.
produce. And he's like, I
Yeah,
know,
it's
Mr.
true.
Roach, I know it just gets hard, but he kept a great attitude throughout his. I think he ended up having 5 or 6 years because of COVID,
Hmm.
and he did a really good job. And every time he got in there, he did a good job. So it's kind of one of those things where he went to UCLA, and he had DTR, Thompson Robinson, the kid
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Cleveland
Cleveland.
Browns,
Yeah, yep, yep.
ahead of him. He went to Purdue, and he
He had
had
Aiden O'Connell.
Aiden O'Connell ahead
Yep.
of him. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like he had
Tough.
these quarterbacks that like weren't producing and everything too. So it was just one of those. And I think he learned a lot of life lessons along the way. It's just got to be patient, and your time will eventually come. And I think that's kind of how he's looked at it. So he's a good kid, really good kid.
Yeah, one thing that stood out to me reflecting when my wife and I went to go meet with Steve at BZ, I think he showed us a voicemail. They had it on his phone at the time, and I think it was Tom Brady giving Austin like props or something like that. It was a cool voicemail. I'm like, wow, to hear that from Tom Brady and him showing us that, I'm like, that is pretty cool. So,
Yeah, that's one of those cool things that I think
yeah.
being in our business for a while, you try to do as a dad.
Hmm.
I was able to, the one I remember is when my son hit his first little league home run. He was 11 years old or what have you at the time. It's a pretty big moment for every
It
kid,
absolutely is.
Yeah,
Yes.
and he came home from school, and on our, back then on our voicemail answering machine were messages from Terry Francona, Kurt Schilling, and Kevin Millar
Wow.
saying, "Hey, congrats on that first home run, Harry. Way to be da 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 da." So you try to do
That's
those
awesome.
those things as a dad to try to help your kids or just kind of make them feel special. So that's
Hmm.
one of the advantages of being in the position that we've been in, especially in the market that we've been in for 20 to 25 years.
Yeah, so staying on the business, I know I'm kind of jumbling all over the place, but what good advice would you give to a young upcoming male, female, me if I ever make it, even though I'm 30, so I'm kind of getting up there for the industry, even though everybody's like, you're only 30. But anyways, what good advice would you give somebody trying to enter the industry, even if it's behind the scenes before they go on air, maybe, if it's
I
sports
think
or news?
it's the old, I give you a lot of cliches and everything. I think the first one, which I told you earlier, is be yourself, right? That's
Hmm.
the most important thing, so that no matter what happens, you can always look in the mirror and say, I gave everything I had and did it the way I wanted to do it. And I didn't, step out of anybody character of who I am and what I do and how I go about it. That would be the first thing. And the second thing, like my motto has always been outwork everybody else, right? So if you give me a task to do, if you tell me exactly this is what I want you to do, focus in on it and do it, and outwork everybody and try to be the best that you can at it. So I've always been prepared when I've gone about my business. I've always done a real good job grinding it out every single day, and making connections at the rink or at the in the locker room and what have you. And I've always believed in like face to face working with my colleagues or the people that I cover. I pride myself on being in the Patriots locker room pretty much every day, doing interviews, asking questions, and everything else as the season starts and training camp and goes all the way through till January. That's one of the things I've always, said. Like, I'm not afraid to ask questions. I'm not afraid to kind of get my own story and get in and get out of there. But I'm going to be there the next day too. So if you have a problem with me, if you have an issue with me, come see me, and we can work things out. So I would say be yourself, outwork others, just put in as much work as you can possibly put into it, and then hopefully good things will happen from that. It's kind of that old cliche, and it kind of puts it in a circle. Opportunity equals luck plus preparation, right?
Hmm.
Luck equals opportunity and preparation. And preparation equals opportunity and luck. Like, you can kind of put those three things hand in hand. And if you continue to have, at least the preparation part, then hopefully it leads to opportunity and you get a little bit of luck on the way. And that's kind of how it's always been for me. I've never sat there and said, hey, I'd like to, work in Boston and cover the Red Sox. I'd like to do a Red Sox show. I'd like to, do a Patriots All Access show. I'd like to do the play-by-play of Patriots preseason games for 8 years. Like, I've never said these are
Hmm.
my goals. It's always been just do as good a job as you possibly do on each task that you have every single day. Hopefully somebody will notice, and hopefully somebody will take a chance on you, and you go from there.
I know the industry is really keen on reels. Like you got to make sure you got reels, and then like you mentioned, you're gonna start in like 150 markets somewhere in Idaho or 145, I don't whatever it is. It's like, like I've been told like you got to move. I'm like, let's, I got a wife. I just had a son in October. It's like moving's not in the cards. Like I want to stay in Boston or Providence. Like that's where I want to start. And if it's behind the scenes somewhere, if it's on the news side, and then I know my forte is sports because I'm really strong and passionate about it. Maybe I'll get there, maybe I won't, but it's just so tough. It really is.
Yeah, and it can get hard, and
Yeah,
that's
it's frustrating
I
too.
think we've all been through that. And I always tell people too. I remember when I was graduating from Syracuse, our advisor got up in front of the 30 of us that graduated in my little group in our one major broadcast journalism, and she said, out of the 30 people are here, or the 50 people, how many ever were in this group, she said, when all is said and done, maybe three of you will actually do what you're designed to do in this
Hmm.
field, and the rest of you will do something completely different. And she said,
Usually how it is.
it's not a knock on anybody. It's just the way that the business is. And I always tell people that too. I was like, don't be afraid to go out and find your passion and build off that. Like if you start out as an 18-year-old that wants to go into college and be an architect, and you get
Go for it.
a year into it and you find out that you love it and you get a job, and great. If you get a year into it and hate it, go change your major and do something
Hmm.
else. It's don't be afraid to take chances on that, because I think that's also part of it too. Is once you get a hold of something that's your passion, I don't think you want to let go. And that's kind of how I look at it too. Every single day, I wake up and try to do the best job that I possibly can, because I just like my job and I want to keep doing my job for as long as I can. And
Hmm.
when that ends, it ends. So I think that's how you have to look at it too in the game of life. And I think you watch too as you go about your business and you keep trying to find that passion or try and find that job. Something will click. Somebody will take a chance on you, and it will. You'll say this feels right, and you'll do that. I also believe that as being an older person in this world, that there's a lot of people that you need to help and take a chance on if you can. So I always say that to my kids too. I said, keep an eye out, make connections with everybody, be
Hmm.
friendly, be respectful to everybody, because you never know who might be able to help you down the road. And we've all been there too.
Yeah,
You might
absolutely.
call, you're a friend of your dad's, or an uncle
Hmm.
or somebody may say, hey, Ken, I know this guy. Here's his number. Get in touch with him. And all of a sudden, that person takes a chance on you, and then boom, you take off. And I'm always on the lookout for that. A lot of people will say it's mentors, it's what have you. I kind of call it little angels. You know what I mean? So
No, that's good.
it's
I
kind of
like
like
both.
what. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. It's kind of a combination of both. That some people, people need a chance, need to take a chance on you, and I think that should be a responsibility as you get older too. As you've been in the world and you've had some success, I think you kind of look at people and say, maybe I should take a chance on that person, because I had the same thing done for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to wake up one day and just be like, if I'm at a studio, if I'm at radio, like I know I've heard you on the Sports Hub. Like I love the Sports Hub. I visited there. I've been to BZ. I interned at Channel 5 with Bob Halloran, one of the best people in the industry.
He's
And
awesome.
yeah, I keep in talk contact with him here and there. Obviously, you're retired now, but I had a lot of great people that I met there. Like I'm having the opportunity to speak to you. I've met Steve. Like just a handful of people that I've met, and I'm like, I want to be in this industry. I know it's tough. And if I'm on the digital side, like you mentioned that gentleman that was an intern and he does that, I'd be happy just writing sports stories for the website. I mean, if you sent me to a game, kudos. I'd be through the roof, but obviously I can't be a fanboy. I got to be respectful and be like, hey, this is what's going on with the current state of whatever, the Patriots or the Red Sox. But I'm
Yeah,
not
I mean
making this
that's
about
kind
me,
of.
but I'm
No,
just
no, no.
mentioning.
It's and that's like I get it. You know what I mean? And I've had
It's
people
just I
say
got a
that to me.
strong passion for professional sports. I mean, I don't mind the college ranks. High school, I've already kind of teeter-tottered with, but just talking
Yep.
about the pro and the college ranks.
Yeah, and it's just kind of one of those things where it just keep grinding, and it falls. And the other part too is, the unfortunate part of our business is if you go and you get married and you have kids. I've met so many people that have just, again, I talked about earlier, a text group that I'm in with a lot of
Hmm.
people that went to Syracuse with me, and they're not doing anything in the business right now. They're just
Wow.
being dads or moms or what have
Hmm.
you, and that's cool too, right? It's just finding a part of your life where you can be you. I think is kind of what it's all about. That could be coaching, it could be teaching, it could be anything in this world. And again, I always tell my kids, find your passion, because when you find your passion, it's a lot easier to wake up every day. It's a lot easier to be a good husband or a wife, and
Hmm.
it's a lot easier to be a good dad or a mom, just because you're happier. You spend so much time in your job that if
You
it's
do.
not fun and if you hate it, then you've seen it. We've all seen it. There's parents that are just like miserable, and that's no way to live.
No, absolutely, because you want the best for your kid and your wife, obviously. So I want the best for my son and my wife,
Yep,
But no, I appreciate that, and I know we still got a little time. We still got a little time for you.
absolutely.
All right. Geez, where should I go with this? Maybe talk about the current state of the teams. I wanted you to
Well, see,
reflect.
I don't make a lot of friends because I'm a very positive person.
Yeah, that's good.
And
I see you do a bunch of stuff, and especially I don't mean to get off topic. I seen you with a guy that I've spoken to that does stuff at EEI too, Joe Weil. He is a
yep,
super duper nice guy.
He's the best.
You know,
He's,
he
he's an
he he
awesome kid.
he works with you guys and then he works with EEI part-time and he does broadcasting. So I see him interview Nelly Furtado, speak to you. I'm like, this guy, kudos to him. You know, he
Yeah.
recently just got married too. So I'm like, wow, good for him.
Yep. And it kind of like so I get made fun of, excuse me, a lot of times for being happy and positive every single
No,
day.
you shouldn't though. That's good. That's
Well,
awesome.
but in this business in this world, it
It's
sometimes it
not happy-go-lucky every day, is it?
yeah, yeah, and I get it. I get when the
It's
Celtics
a grind, yeah.
lose a game, I get it. You know what I mean. But it's also different ways to look at different things, and I think we've been spoiled, as everyone has said, for the last 20 plus years. And
Hmm.
if you sit here and think about it, everybody's ticked off at the Patriots, and rightly so after two really bad 4-13 seasons.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think when Mike Vrabel walked into the Foxborough offices in Gillette Stadium, it just felt different. It felt refreshing. It felt like
Hmm.
football was back, and not everything else going on around that. So that's a good positive sign. And I think if you look now, and we see it clear as day, and have seen it for the last 50, 60 years, that if you have a coach and a quarterback and they're very good, you have a chance, right?
Yeah,
And
you're on
that's
the
kind
right
of what
path.
we have now in Foxborough. We have a head coach, seemingly in Mike Vrabel, that knows what he's doing, has been there,
Hmm.
done that, and has hit the ground running. And you have a quarterback in Drake May who seems and has showed at times in his rookie campaign that he's got it. And I think you need that. And it's Reed Mahomes, it's Belichick Brady, it's going way back to Staubach and Landry and Noel and Bradshaw and everyone in between. You
Hmm.
need a coach quarterback to be successful in this league, and it's not always easy. You look at the Buffalo Bills. So I kind of look at it like, okay, so fresh start with the Patriots. Poor Boston sports fans haven't enjoyed a championship since June, right? Because of the Celtics winning
Yeah.
an NBA title, right?
7 months. Ooh.
Right. So they're all up in arms over this year's edition of the
Yeah.
Celtics. But, we're seeing what the difficulty of trying to win back to back
It's a
championships.
grind and a half.
Yeah, and there's a
Yeah.
lot that has to happen. It's not just on the court. It's also health. It's also chemistry. It's also keeping a group together and getting through the tough times, the losing streaks and what have you. Jason Varitek used to always tell me in spring training when he was captain of the Red Sox. I'd say, what do you think of this group of guys in the clubhouse? And he goes, "Come see me in August. Come see me when
Hmm.
we've been through a 5 game winning streak and we've been through a 5 game losing streak. And I'll tell you what kind of team we have and what I think and what I don't like and what it needs to improve and things like that." So that's kind of what's happening with the Celtics and the Bruins. Yeah, they're struggling. Yeah, they need goal scorers. We've seen that and everything else.
Hmm.
But I just laugh because we went through the greatest historic, regular season in NBA, NHL history
Two
just a
years
couple,
ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
just a couple of years ago, and they fell flat on their face in the opening round. So who's to say that they can't try to struggle and find it and grind and get through this regular season and end up a fifth seed or what have you and go on a run? Like you
Hmm.
just don't know. And I think that's the beauty of every single team. It's like I was talking to the Beanpot coaches with the Beanpot tournament coming up the first Monday in February. Boston College is number one. They were number one last year, and they're different guys. It's a different team. Players have left that Boston College team and been
Hmm.
replaced by younger players. But you never know what kind of chemistry they have and what kind of grind they go through and how they can emerge. BU's going through the same things. I think that's the beauty of coaching, and that's the beauty of following sports, is that every team is different. Every year is different. And I think you have to get used to that around here. So I think that's kind of how I look at it. And now with the Red Sox, I think that they're a playoff contending team. I'd love to see them go out and get a right-handed bat to complement what they have. But I
Hmm.
think at least you're starting to see hope on the Red Sox side. So I look at it like, hey, everything's fine. The Revolution blew themselves up, so we'll see what happens with
Yeah.
them, and then we'll kind of go from there. But it's not bad being in Boston with all the pro sports teams. It could be a lot worse. I always say that to people, and man, I mean it. Like you could be in any other market where it's always a struggle or what have you. And we've been blessed, and it's still very much fun to follow these sports teams every single day.
That was probably under 5 minutes, but that was awesome how you went through college and the pros and to a point. That's awesome. You know, you hit all the nails on the head between the Patriots, the Red Sox, the Celtics, the Bruins, and then you were talking about BU and BC. But no, it is a grind. Obviously, it's not easy. we fans, and obviously you guys as reporters, you guys can't be like, oh, you got to just be honest. Like, if
Right.
the
When they're
Pats,
terrible, they're terrible.
yeah, if the Pats suck, like I remember seeing a lot of fifth quarters this year. It was not pretty between Fourier, Steve looked pissed, you
Right.
weren't happy. Mike Reese, like I seen you guys all frustrated, and I'm like, I feel you guys because that's me every freaking week.
I
Like
know. And
I'm
it's,
I'm frustrated too. Like I don't like
yep.
this crap that's going on.
Yeah. And it's, for me, it's always just like people are like, oh, you're so positive and everything else. I'm like,
You're
it's
on
not,
camera, you gotta be in a
well,
way,
not only
but
that, but
that's
it's
how
just
you
hard.
are. Yeah.
It's hard to ask questions. It's hard when they,
Hmm.
when you get a team that comes in week after week losing, it's hard to keep a, not be, so you just got to sit there and you got to do your job, right? It's,
Hmm.
Bill used to say, it's just like my job is, hey, Ken, how did you feel about this loss? What went wrong in this loss? Do you take anything from this loss that you can get better at? I
Yeah.
mean, it's just like, you can't just sit there and say, you know what, Ken, you suck, right? That's kind of like, you can't do that as a, as
No.
a, as a broadcaster. It's
No,
just,
you'll get
you know,
instantly fired or suspended.
yeah, it's just, right. It's just like, so we
No,
all
I
will do
I
our
hear
best.
you. And staying on the Pats topic, I know we've been talking about a lot in the past half hour or so. Do you think, I know this is reflecting, I know we got the whole new regime now, and I'm loving the whole new coaching staff, having ex-coaches on the head coaches on the staff. Do you think Gerard Mayo kind of got the short end of the stick on this after 1 year, or you should have went to Vrabel a year ago?
Well, I think, you can fault him if you want, but for years it worked with Bill Belichick,
Hmm.
and Tom Brady. Robert Kraft is a loyal type of owner, right? He's been that way in all of his businesses. Has made him successful and made him a multi-billionaire.
Hmm.
And he put a lot of faith and trust in the people that work for him. He's always been that way. And I think we saw it in Bill Belichick, who maybe stayed a couple of years too long. And I think we saw it in maybe Belichick and Brady, and the fact that Brady said to anybody and everyone for years that all he wanted to do was play until he was 45. That was his end game.
Hmm.
And you would think that as a franchise, you would say if you were Belichick, you know what, we'll make it work. Play to 45 and let's get it done and let's go win another Super Bowl. But those things happen in life and everything else. Now on the flip side of that, Robert Kraft made a decision in his heart that he felt the right choice was going to be Gerard Mayo. And he stuck with Gerard Mayo and he was loyal to Gerard Mayo and said, you know what, I know you don't have any head coaching experience, but you're the guy that I thought would be the next leader of this team. I like the way that you lead men and like the way that, you lead defenses, like the way you played here. And he made that decision and it didn't work. Right. So for me, I give a lot of credit to Robert for turning around and saying, you know what, it didn't work and it wasn't working and it probably wasn't going to work quickly or as quickly as he wanted to. He's getting up there in age and he wants to see a playoff type of team. So,
Hmm.
and I think that, with Gerard, did he get fair shake? No, right?
Yeah,
He got thrown into that and
he
he
did.
clearly wasn't ready for that. So he needed some time. Would he get better? Absolutely. But I think time, but I also think the opportunity of having a guy who's been in the NFL, who won 3 Super Bowls with you, has been a head coach, has taken a team to an AFC championship as a head coach. You had that staring you in the face. And for me, it was kind of like, I was telling people, I don't think he's going to go out and hire Ben Johnson because that's the same thing we just saw with Gerard Mayo. And Ben Johnson may be a great coach for the Bears, right? But he didn't have any head coaching experience. And I think that's a tough thing to do back to back. So I thought he was going to either stick with Gerard Mayo or, and I said this in December, if Mike Vrabel's still there and wants to come here, I'd have a hard time if I was Robert Kraft saying, you know what I
No,
mean?
yeah.
Because like your ideal thing, right, would be, hey, Gerard, let's step back. Let Mike be the head coach. You come up into a senior role or whatever you want to do in the organization, you can do. But let's try this route. And that doesn't happen in sports, right? You
No,
just
it doesn't.
Gerard Mayo,
Rarely.
yeah, your ego and everything else is going to get in the way. It's
Hmm.
to nobody's fault. So I give him credit for pulling the trigger on this one and saying goodbye to Mayo and hello to Mike Vrabel. And like I said, I think there's a good feeling in the organization. Will it lead to wins right away? Maybe, maybe not. But
Looking
I
at
just
this
think,
schedule,
yeah.
I don't know, Dan, maybe. I'm not
All
gonna
right.
say a 10-win team. I know
Yeah,
that,
no, no,
but
no, no. I think they have a
you're
chance to
playing
be
the
a,
division that's kind of
yes. And I
up
think they
and
have a chance
coming
to be
and
a very good team from day one. And I think, people are saying, oh, they're going to clean house. I don't necessarily think so because I think a lot of the players, especially the defense, which failed miserably
miserably.
for
Yep,
many
you're right.
reasons. I think they're the same players that have been successful for many reasons. And I think once Rabel gets a hold of them and says, and he seems to be listening to his former Titan players saying, if you do this, this, and this,
Hmm.
we'll have success. And I think that's what they needed last year and didn't get from the coaching staff. It seemed like, when some team would come out and score a touchdown in the opening drive, we always saw Bill Belichick teams stop and adjust
Yep.
and get better, or at halftime, get in there and have a much better second half. We didn't see that with this team. And to me,
Hmm.
that's a lot of that's on coaching. And I thought I liked this coaching staff. They were thrown together. So maybe that was unfair. But I just think from day one, when Vrabel was announced, it's been everybody's on the same page. I know everybody. I have experience at this. And now we're going to go gung ho, get the players here and coach them up and go out and have a successful game plan. So we'll see what happens. To me, that's fun, right? That's kind of the fun
No,
part.
absolutely. I can't wait for the season.
Yeah,
I know it's just ending basically next weekend, but I just can't wait for the football season to start up again.
I agree. I'm excited. I can't wait for training camp. Like
Hmm.
like I said, I like the grind. I'm really looking forward to the grind with this team, with this coaching staff
Yeah, me too.
to see what's next. How good can Drake may be? How
Hmm.
good, can they get some big bodies on the offensive and defensive line? And can they complement with the secondary players, linebackers, what have you? How good can they be? How can they get some talent from wide receiver? What's the draft going to bring them? I mean, that's, you know what I mean? Like I step out of, there's too much junk in the world of
It
everyday
is.
life
Yeah,
that
it
I
is.
think I look forward to thing. And that's why I keep doing what I'm doing, Kenny, because I keep, I get to be a
No,
little kid.
I appreciate you guys doing that. Thank you again, Dan, for joining me.
Yeah, my pleasure. And best of luck to you and keep grinding. You're going to find something and it's going to click one day. Don't worry about it. You'll be just
I
fine.
I appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
All right.